Yeah, g'day everyone and welcome back to the TryPod Live with Clarky, Winny and Nakul for this very special edition. Very, very excited to bring you guys our Game 3 State of Origin Decider preview. We're going to break it all down for you from every possible angle. Joined, as always, by the founder of TryPod, Jacob Wynn. Winny, how are you going?
Great, thanks, mate. Can't wait to talk about the decider.
Awesome. Love it. For those that are unaware of Winnie and coming from my page specifically, he has run this podcast for the past 9 years where he's given out free best bets, no paid, no paywalls, nothing, just straight tips for his followers. And if you'd bet on his best bets for the last 9 years, well, you would have won 9 years in a row. And I'm also joined by the founder of Winny Nakul. How you going, my friend?
Very, very excited, man. I know I'm wearing blue, but I'm very impartial, don't worry. Pumped up to preview Origin 3, the decider.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I can't wait either. For those that are joining from my page as well and unaware of Wiki, Nakul has founded a data and analytics company. They've created some powerful data tools and analytic tools, and they work with sports teams professionally around the world with those tools. So super exciting stuff. Let's move straight into our best bet segment, Winnie. This is the one that everyone loves. We always like to give it in the first 5 minutes, so to not keep you guys waiting. So what have you got for us in the way of best bets for the Origin Decider?
Yeah, we've got heaps to get through tonight. It's worth mentioning we've previewed the games together, you and I. Nakul's joined us as well sporadically, but last 2 years, and Clarky has picked the winner of the game 5 out of 5 Origins. I myself have picked the winner 4 out of 5. The one I got wrong, Origin 1 this year. There was a send-off pretty early that may have been influential. Clarky also had his Clarky's Collect Same Gamer that paid at $10 odds. He picked 3 out of 4 try scorers. I gave Moses man of the match at $10. I gave Moses man of the series 200 to 1 before game 1 as well. I've got a juicy man of the match for tonight. I've done a deep dive on the Wally Lewis medal, but I won't keep everyone waiting for my best bet after I did win the game 2 best bet. I'm going either team 1 to 11. I think this game goes down to the wire. I don't mind saying that straight off the bat. And the best way to play that is on Top Sport as a same game multi. All you do in the old handicaps is you take both teams plus 11.5. $1.85, as I said, that gives you. You can play either team 1 to 10. It's $1.82 on Lads and Neds as well. But that's the best price toppy. You never know. 11 points, unlikely margin of victory, but it's possible as well. And, of course, I'll give my actual game prediction winner later, but that one is a good bet for a neutral or really people on either side of the state lines. If you agree that after 2 20-plus point wins, we get a nail biter in the decider.
Yeah, it seems right. I mean, we've sat here for the preview shows 1 and 2, and we've said, this will be the tight one. And for game 2, we said, well, there was a send-off, so this will be the tight one. It just hasn't happened yet. So game 3, I believe, also looms as a tight one there, and I think that's a great best bet. All righty, we'll pause our preview here momentarily. We're going to hear from a very special guest, a very good-looking guest, a fan favorite here in the TryPod community. It's the CEO of Top Sport, Mr. Tristan Merlan.
G'day everyone, it's Tristan here from Top Sport. We've got the decider coming up on Wednesday, and I'm sure everyone's excited for it. Just having a look at where the market's moved on the back of this game. We open the market up straight after game 2 at $1.85. Queensland $1.95, New South Wales, obviously the Suncorp factor massive in where we opened that because New South Wales were dominant in game 2. From there was a strong push for New South Wales where the market went straight into Pick'em, $1.90 take your pick, which it stayed the same until the teams were playing their last run before getting selected for Origin. And unfortunately, as we know, Latrell got hurt in that weekend. That saw the market shift to $1.74 Queensland, $2.10 New South Wales. But after the teams were announced, New South Wales were backed into $2 and it was $1.80 Queensland. So that stayed pretty solid for a while, and then there's just been a slow incremental amount of money for New South Wales since those teams were announced, and we're into $1.85, $1.95 now. Queensland's still slight favourites, but obviously it's very, very tight in the betting, and it wouldn't surprise me if the game got to Pick'em come Wednesday night. Just looking at the Suncorp factor, as we know, Suncorp's such a big advantage for Queensland. If this game was in New South Wales, I'm tipping, in Melbourne like it was last time, the market got out to 2.5 after their dominant display. I'd suggest it would probably be around about maybe the 4.5 skewed the plus or 3.5 skewed the minus, obviously taking into account the strong win, but also no Latrell. So that's probably where I feel the market would be at that Melbourne venue. Just having a look at some of the big liabilities, there's been a bit of a push for hammer in the try-scoring markets in terms of the man of the match, the big one we've seen support for it at a big price is Kalen Ponga, where someone's had a good crack at him at $23. That would probably indicate that punter thinks he's going to be pretty influential and get quite a bit of game time. So good luck if you're having a wager over the weekend. And also, and just on the total points, there's been a strong push for the overs in that as well. Obviously, both the first two games over the weekend, over the series went overs. And I think punters are expecting a free-flowing affair and plenty of points in this game. So that's where all the money's been so far in this matchup. Good luck if you're having a bet over the weekend. And of course, gamble responsibly. Thank you.
Great stuff there from Tristan, as always. Thank you very much for that clip there. Let's move into the Queensland team, lads. We'll start with you, Winnie. Jaden Sewer drops out. Kurt Capewell starts at back row. Xavier Coates and Murray Taulagi are both out, so that shifts Valentine Holmes to a wing. Dane Gagai comes in at centre, and Selwyn Cobbo returns on the other wing. With Capewell starting, his bench spot is opened up for Kalen Ponga. What are your thoughts on these changes? Do you think this is a stronger Queensland side from what we saw in Game 2?
I'm glad that Ponga has been picked. I think I know that Billy was never going to do this, but an outlandish pick may have actually been to throw Ponga all the way into 6. I think that would present the most problems for New South Wales to defend. But Billy's stuck with Dearden. I'll talk about whether or not he is the right choice and can lead Queensland to a victory later on. But Ponga may actually come out and play a bit of second receiver. And it's going to be very boring and like a broken record, but I'd like to see David Fifita in that team. And we might touch on that again later too.
Interesting you called for Dave Fifita there, mate. I haven't seen too much of that in the media calling for his inclusion there. What about you, Nakul? What do you make of these Maroons changes?
Look, I don't actually love the changes. I definitely am on board with they really should have picked David Fifita. I think Capewell and Kafusi in that 17 is overkill. And you got to remember that also Dane Gagai. So it's like quite a few guys that are experienced, but also a little bit older. Whereas obviously the Blues have a ton of fresh faces and sort of younger body generally. So I actually reckon for the first time, the Blues, actually for the second time this series, I actually agree with the Blues team changes more than the Maroons. I'll get to who I think will win, etc. a bit later. But selection-wise, I think Queensland could definitely have done better. But the one thing I do like is they've been super consistent. Fifita could have arguably been picked Game 1. He wasn't. Game 2, he wasn't. And Billy's gone all in with Ponga and Gagai on Game 3. And honestly, I kind of respect that.
Yeah, I think it's good to bring the experience in when you look at how dominant the Blues were in Game 2. But I think an element of that as well is I looked at Game 1 and the Blues also had a lot of momentum in that game despite having 12 players. So I think that really sums up the difference in both of these sides' benches here. And I think the Maroons, a selection like Kalen Ponga, if you've got the momentum in the middle, world class. You could not pick someone better. But if it's going against you, he's not necessarily the man you want to come out to try to change that, in my opinion. So that's interesting there. Of course, there's a David Fifita. Only other comment I'd make is I was interested to see, or at least know, how close they might have been to considering Kalen Ponga on a wing, given they lost both wingers. You know, he started his career there with the Cowboys. Not his best position, of course, but could they have found that the way to squeeze him into that starting side? Alrighty, let's look over the fence, though, at the New South Wales Blues. Latrell Mitchell's out, so Bradman Best comes in at centre. Mitchell Barnett joins the interchange at the expense of Homoli Olakau'atu, and that frees up the 18th man position, which is Matt Burton again. What do you think, Winnie? Do you think this is a stronger Blues side, weaker? Do you like the changes? What are your thoughts?
Sorry, I put the wrong team up there. There we go. Look, they weren't going to change it much from Game 2, where they had like the most dominant half of footy display in Origin history. Then Latrell's out. You had to pick a replacement. There's a few options, but I think Best was the clear correct choice, and it fits Madge's style. And then you swap out Olakau'atu. Didn't really do anything wrong, but Barnett has been banging down the door, and Madge obviously feels he can trust Martin and Crichton to play 80 minutes on an edge. And if they did need to replace a second rower, I presume Barnett can go there. Watson could too, and Cam Murray can also shift out and bring Isaiah Yeo in. So therefore, there was a little bit of redundancy there with what Olakau'atu could offer. And this way, New South Wales has, 3 middle forwards on the bench.
And what are your thoughts, Nicole? Do you like these changes the Blues have made?
I think they've absolutely nailed it. I don't want to repeat what he just said, but I think, Homole, I think they could have made a role for him, which is like play him on the right edge for 30 minutes, but it didn't look like they were really going to do that. So I think if you're not, then you play Mitch Barnett. I think on the recap show last Sunday, I don't want to repeat everything, but I spoke about how immense Barnett's effort was in that 80-odd minute performance in that Golden Point game against the Bulldogs. So they've nailed selection. I don't think you can criticize anything the Blues have done in selection the last 2 games.
Yeah, I agree with both of you there. I think the addition of Mitchell Barnett is awesome. He can cover the edge. He has done that for the Warriors this year if absolutely required. But we know in the middle he's done a bunch of huge numbers, play big minutes, have aggression, everything you like. And although the Blues have been dominant up the middle so far this year, I think the fact that they've swapped out Olaquatu for Barnett shows they're looking over the fence of the Maroons to see where the Maroons feel they need to improve the most. And bringing in Mitchell Barnett, it's kind of like, well, we know you guys are going to be trying to improve the middle. We're going to make sure that doesn't happen by bringing Barney in. So really good move there by the Blues, in my opinion. All righty, in game 1, we have keys to victory for each side. Let's go there again. We will start with the Maroons. And I'll start with you, Nakul. What's something when you look at this decider you think the Maroons must get right if they're to win?
Yep, I think, as I said before, they've gone for experience, right? So if you go into this game with Ponga, with Gagai, with Capewell and Kaufusi, you're banking on your experience. You're definitely not banking on like a 30-16 kind of win. You're pretty much banking on like a 18-12, 18-16 kind of game. If I'm not making myself clear, defense is going to be super important for them. But I've actually written this in my preview, which I'll publish straight after this. I think the one point of difference in attack that the Maroons have, if you look at their sides of the field, the left side, they've got Dearden and Capewell most likely lining up against with each other. Sorry. On the right side, you've got DCE, Nanai, Gagai, and Cobbo. Like by far, I reckon that's the more electric edge in attack. I did talk about Nanai before game 2. He obviously scored. So I reckon that right edge for Queensland is going to be huge. And I'd go far as to say if they don't create points, I think you're really, really depending on Reece Walsh and Hammer to do something, which in a decider, it's hard to look at the big plays, right? Whereas DCE, you can just sort of like DCE, Nanai, Gagai, a lot more. I think you just like expect them to step up on the big stage, whereas you're kind of waiting for like a big play for the others, which you don't want to be depending on in a decider.
I'd agree with that. I think the more consistent side over the 80 minutes generally will get the win. And when you do have players that go for the big plays, like the young Broncos side last year, it does work to a certain extent. But then you do see the more consistent side over 80 minutes. In that case, it was the Panthers come back and get the win. I've got a couple here. The first one's as simple as intent on defense. In game 2, it looked like the Maroons were more focused on the technique of the ruck and trying to control it that way. Whereas the Blues was kind of like, hey, let's just hit them as hard as we can, drive them back and make it a dogfight. And I thought they were really dominant in that area over the Maroons. Now, that job gets harder for Queensland now. They've got some older players in the side. Their bodies are a little more bruised and a little more tired. And so far in this series, they've missed 95 tackles to the Blues 68. And they've also had 48 ineffective tackles to the Blues only 15. So it's definitely an area they need to nail and get right. Second one goes without saying, possession. I mean, we saw in game 2 how important it was. If we didn't already know as footy fans, it was dead and over the moment the Blues controlled that footy for the first 40 and really made the key moments count. The Maroons are also averaging 12 errors per game in the first 2 games to the Blues 8. So that's an extra 4 errors. And I also think that can quite literally be the difference between a win or a loss, particularly in a tight origin decider in the crucial moments. All right, Winnie, I'll cross to you. Give us your Queensland keys to victory and then follow on with the Blues if you don't mind, please.
Yeah, I think without repeating too much from game 1 and 2, but what we spoke about, a lot of that did transpire. It's the ultimate clash of styles in terms of how these teams want to play and what their strengths are. It's a real yin and yang, and it is power versus speed. So let's look at the teams as they've been picked, which we've briefly touched on. New South Wales, 4 forwards on the bench. Strong, aggressive players and options at every position. Queensland has gone light on the bench. 2 utility options, really, and 2 strict forwards. They've favoured mobility. Let's look at that for feeder omission there. picking Capewell. In what universe is Capewell a better player than Fafita? Well, is he a more reliable defender? And in a fast, high-paced game, is Capewell less prone to making mistakes and missing a tackle? We talked a bit about, I think we litigated the Fafita selection or lack of before game one. Without going over all that again, what it does remind me of is, I would have to say 15 years ago, there was a really damaging forward that I thought New South Wales just didn't want to face, and his name was Dave Taylor. And we knew what he could do on his best day, could bowl over people and could change a game. But in a decider, Mal picked the likes of a Ben Teo over Dave Taylor. And I was just racking my brain thinking, how could you possibly think that this is the better option? But the truth is, the speed of the game is greater than, any other level. You might say, just play him a few less minutes, it's going to be okay. But the minutes that they're out there, can that player hold up? And Queensland has picked mobility and fitness over power, ultimately. So the key to victory for Queensland, keep that ball in play. Both sides, of course, want high completions. Every team wants high completions, but New South Wales wants a lot of high completions because they want to make Queensland do a lot of tackling. They love to get those repeat sets. They'll love to try and force line dropouts. So I'll talk about the strategy behind dropouts later. Queensland, of course, they want to also tire New South Wales out, but they want to wear New South Wales out, whereas New South Wales wants to wear Queensland down. I think Queensland just wants less and less stoppages and just wants everyone getting tired, because that's what's going to create the opportunities. The strength of the Maroons is the speed. Reece Walsh, the hammer, Ponga. Can they get isolated? Can they get the ball in a little bit of space out wide? I mean, you've got to earn the right, but essentially New South Wales wants to play through Queensland. Queensland wants to play around New South Wales. So it's the ultimate clash in styles. I don't think New South Wales minds kicking for touch, and having a few stoppages, because it gets back to that power game. New South Wales is going to win the yardage. It's crazy to me. Look at the odds on Toppy. New South Wales are an underdog in this game. They're $1.37 to have more meters. All right, so it tells you a lot about, the way that the Blues are going to play. We backed the Blues have more possession in game two, actually, as our best bet. The key to victory, I think, if it's a faster game and Queensland has even half the possession or better, the Maroons will win. If the Blues have a greater share of possession and do dominate the yardage battle, that's how they'll win. A secondary key, which I'd like to throw it into Cool for, I think in a game where there could have one try decide it, the aerial battles between both wingers. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Nakul. I'm sure you've looked at this. I think there's a mismatch on both sides. I think we have Cobbo lining up against To'o, where there's a big advantage kicking for Queensland, the high ball. But then Lomax will be marked by Val Holmes, which also definitely is a big threat for the Blues, which we've seen Lomax cash in on in both game one and game two. So that moment alone, getting those opportunities and getting that kick right could be a try that could be vital. Have I got those matchups right, Nakul?
Yep,
because it is shuffled back line.
I'm staring at it as we speak on the side of my screen. Yeah.
So maybe, and you can lead into your keys to New South Wales.
Yes, we'll do. You literally took the words out of my mouth. I've got, I did write how, Bradman Best, you cannot replace Latrell Mitchell. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I've heard this a few times and it sounds wrong, but I think it's right because I've heard it so many times on so many different sources. Has Latrell Mitchell never lost an Origin game?
That's what I've heard, and I can't think of one where he has.
I might check after. You know what? Maybe chuck in the comments if I'm wrong here. But I've heard it on so many different podcasts and stuff. Latrell Mitchell has never lost an Origin game, so I'm big on aura and stuff like that. But
neither has Bradman Best.
Oh, come on! But yes, he has, and you know what? He's never lost a game 3, which is huge. But no, the point I tried to make was Bradman Best is, if you take the aura out of it, just go for big body, powerful presence, all that stuff. Bradman Best is a like-for-like replacement. I think the Blues have done well. And then you imagine him and Angus Crichton. Angus Crichton is the only player ever to win back-to-back Player of the Month or whatever he just did. He's been in great form, right? Them two on the left edge, great. But my point, or the go-to for the Blues and attack is what I went to Zach Lomax on the right wing, just as Winnie pointed out. Mitch Moses, I think they spoke about this a few times, but 4 try assists in game 2. That's as many as anyone's had in a series for the last 8 years, and the most anyone's had in a game for like 20 odd years since Freddie, I think it was. So I still reckon, even though they've got some threats on the left, the Blues have to go right in attack. And also, I would say that's up against Holmes and Capewell on the left side in defence, who are Holmes out of recent position on the wing, and Capewell playing left edge in an Origin game, which is a little bit insane to me.
I had a look there. From what I can see, I think Latrell Mitchell has lost 2 Origin games, one in 2019 and one in 2021. The 2021 one was a dead rubber.
Yeah, it might be Latrell Mitchell's never lost an Origin series then. Maybe the fact that everyone keeps saying might be wrong.
It seems too good to be true. But if you're telling me, if did Latrell play game 1 in 2019? That's the only game the Blues lost. Anyway,
he played 3 games in 2018, they won. He played in 2019, they won. He played in 2021, they won. And he played once this year, and it's a close one. We don't know who's going to win yet. So he could keep his...
based on that, New South Wales has already won the series. Because if the stat is that any series Latrell plays in, the Blues win, then shall we wrap the preview up now?
Don't tell the bookies.
Well, the other thing is, too, in 2019, he only played 1 game as well, and they still won.
Dead rubber in 2021, where Latrell actually had the penalty shot at goal, and it fell short. He said his shorts were too tight. But, so I think I heard the same thing, Nakul. I think it's a classic case of Chinese whispers, where it's originally hasn't lost the series, and then people change it to a game, and you hear it, and if you can't think of the contrary straight away, then you run with it and say it. So, anyway, we cleared that up.
Absolutely. I think for my New South Wales key to victory, I don't think I need to change too much here, lads. I just look at their game plan in the first 2 games, and I think it worked. In game 1, let's not forget, they played 73 minutes with 12 men. And they had enough share of possession and field position in that game that if a few things were different, who knows what could have happened. I'm not going to say they would win, but they played well enough with that game plan with 12 men. Then we go to game 2. They didn't really change their game plan. They just stuck with it. I think if they can do that again, minimize the errors in their own end, play the quote-unquote long game with kicking and with the higher percentage plays, I think they can actually pressure the Maroons into some uncharacteristic errors like they have done in games 1 and 2, where the Maroons are averaging 4 more errors per game. But above all else, I think the key to victory is their bench. I look at their bench, I see Yeo, Barnett, and Lemieux. Those are 3 players that can bring it in the middle of the field, bring intensity. When you go to the Maroons bench, you're probably not going to get that from Grant or Ponga. Probably not going to get it from Kaufusi. So that really leaves Moeki Fodawaker a big, big task there. So the bench will absolutely be crucial for the Blues, in my opinion. Alrighty, we'll go on to the game preview now, a specific game preview. Let's break it down from any angle you want. How do you believe this decider will play out? Let's go with you first, please, Winnie.
Well, home advantage is big. I mean, you heard it from the horse's mouth. Tristan said if this game was in Melbourne, it would be a 4.5 or 3.5 line in New South Wales' favour. So let's call it a +4. But New South Wales, a +4 to Queensland. But Queensland is -1.5. So home advantage is worth 5.5 points. That's as big as any venue in any game of rugby league. And we know historically that New South Wales very rarely is able to overcome that, especially in deciders. But I don't know. I don't see the intimidation factor. I look at this Blues team and I reckon it's a team that has absolute belief that they can come up here and get it done and make some history for themselves. I'm looking at some of these stars in their absolute prime. Like Nakul, you talked about the danger of the potential weaknesses in the Queensland left edge defence. They're coming up against Critter, who has dead set flames coming off him this year. Dylan Edwards is in his prime. Moses in his prime. Haas in his prime. Cam Murray, right? They're all superstars. They will shine. And you look at some of the aggressors that New South Wales has picked. I mean, Toto, aggressive style of player. Liam Martin, Lemieux, Barnett. Will they not relish the hostility? I think that home advantage is still real in the sense that the crowd can sway a couple of calls, and a couple of calls can be vital. Do you give that extra 6 again? Do you give that penalty or not? And I think it will be a different game to Melbourne because not as many calls will go against Queensland, and that means it won't be such a massive weight of possession, which obviously had a lot to do with Queensland's try line being breached so many times. It was a real snowball effect. Another reason Queensland had to do so much tackling, New South Wales forced all these dropouts. And as I said in the recap for game 2, I could not believe Queensland kept going long for their dropouts. I mean, you've got to at least make it a contest. You already did way too much defensive work and lost the game in the first half. Try and change the momentum. So, that's something I'll be looking for Queensland. And again, I think that they're going to want to keep the ball in play.
Absolutely, mate. Nakul, I've got a fair bit to say, so I'll cross over to you first. Let me know how you're seeing this game and break it down for us, please.
Yep. Okay. I think I'm going to offer some contrasting opinions, which would be good for the listeners, right? So the way I see this game is, if you look at the teams on paper, you look at obviously the first couple of games, you look at the selection decisions, everything should tell you that New South Wales, to a man, on paper, is the better team. I think that too. What I think, and I reckon a couple of years ago, I would have said, yeah, Blues all the way. What I see, though, when you look at that sort of like man to man, the one thing that you can't tell me, and I agree with Winny, yes, they're in the prime of their career, a lot of these Blues players, but I'll just read out these names: Daly Cherry Evans, Val Holmes, Dane Gagai, Kalen Ponga, Ben Hunt, Paddy Carrigan, Harry Grant, Felice Kafusi. It is a mixture of the guys who are part, or maybe like just after the 8-0 and stuff, but like Origin legends from the last decade, and a couple of guys who in the last 2 series that the Maroons have won have shown them to be future Origin greats, and the games at Suncorp. So I think, yes, on paper, New South Wales is the better team, but at Suncorp, in a decider, with the experience that the Maroons have, the consistency of Billy Slater's approach to coaching and selection, I'm going to back them in to win by barely a couple of points, but I reckon the Maroons get it done.
Mate, great call. And I'd certainly agree with the best bet call, Winnie, of this being a tight contest. I expect this has to be the tight contest. We haven't had one in game 1 or 2. These Origin sides are still very, very close. And what I actually did with Random Stats Guy, we came up with a formula that would rate a player from 0 to 100 based on all of their stats so far this season. And when you average the teams, the Blues are 2.5 points better out of 100. So they're that close that, the odds tell us this. The chances tell us, right, this should be a tight game here. I think both coaching staff and coaching setups are smart enough to tweak the game plan where they need and implement the new, game plan. And for that reason, I actually see tries coming in more of an unorthodox manner in this game. What I mean by that is off kicks, line breaks, sustained pressure, short dropouts gone wrong. I don't think this will be the old classic shift it left or right to the wingers with a block play, basic shape, maybe hit someone short, maybe go long. I don't think points are going to come that easy because both sides will be so well adjusted. So I do expect it to be a really tight game based on what we've seen over the 160 minutes so far of Origin. But I will say the Blues have been the stronger team. All things considered, stats, the eye test, no matter what kind of angle you go at this, the Blues have been the stronger side, in my opinion. And I'm almost certain if Joseph Suaalii didn't get sent off in game 1, I believe the Maroons win still, but I believe it's a much tighter margin, and this decider would be a very different market, in my opinion. Now, of course, you both touched on it, Suncorp. It is a huge advantage, possibly the biggest advantage any home team could ever get around the world in sport. It is something else, and it's something that absolutely all must factor into our considerations. I've also got a few stats for our listeners to consider or consume. After claiming game 1 in Sydney, the Maroons have only lost 1 series at Brisbane and a decider, and that was 1994. They've won 7 of those series, so they'd be looking for 8 here. Throughout Origin history, the side that loses game 1, so the Blues in this case, has only gone on to win the decider 10 times out of 41 attempts. The last time the Blues won a decider in Brisbane was in 2005. Of the 13 deciders that have been played at Brisbane, the Blues have only won 2. So, the stats there really do sum up the importance of Suncorp above all. I think for my final breakdown, I think this Blues side is more balanced than the Maroons, particularly in the forward pack area, where I do see their forwards off the bench bringing real impact, regardless of whether there's momentum or not. Whereas for the Maroons bench, I think players like Kalen Ponga and Harry Grant are going to require the Maroons pack to really stand up and take it to the Blues. And if that happens, then this will be there will be some points for this Maroons side, in my opinion. Alrighty, well, that is my say and my breakdown, gents. So I'm going to give Clarky's Collect at this point. If you guys are not tracking, Clarky's Collect is a new market we started for Origin 2. And basically, I'm up 11 units to the nearest roundup. New South Wales Blues at the line of plus 1.5 at $1.90 on Top Sport. It might have moved slightly lower than that, Winnie. Is that true?
I saw $1.85 today. Yeah,
$1.85.
Tiny bit of money for the Blues.
Yeah, and that's still about $1.80 minimum of what we'll hand out for a best bet on this show. So there you go, guys. I said it. I feel sick. I hope for everything that is beautiful in my home state of Queensland that I grew up in that I'm wrong and that my analysis is wrong. Of course, I will be cheering the Maroons, but I've just got to say, I do think the Blues are more than capable of, continuing on this trend where they have been very good this Origin series. We haven't got a final say from you yet.
Just to be clear,
I was just going to say, by one. Maroons by one, you're sweet. Best of both worlds.
Yeah, well, there you go. So,
I didn't consider that, but that would be absolutely unbelievable if we could cash Clarky's collect and the Maroons win. That would be unbelievable.
That's the needle you want to thread, and my best bet would win too if that happens. So Queensland by one, we'll all be happy except Nakul. Andrew says, do you see a forward going over Clarky? So hold that thought, Andrew. And to be clear, we're tracking Clarky's collect. You're giving that out as a single, but you also have a same gamer that you'll share later, Clarky, which will also count for Clarky's collect, and it is called the Clarky's collect SGM. Just we want to be clear. It's one thing to say tips here and there and then say, oh yeah, I got it right or I didn't, but we're saying these are official, that they're all going to be tracked in Clarky's record. The other point I wanted to make on those stats, Clarky, like New South Wales only winning 2 out of 13 deciders at Lang Park is meaningful, because that is pretty extreme, right? So that says something again about the task that the Blues have to face. But the other one you gave, I always chuckle about. People say, oh, winning game one of the series is so important. The team that wins game one wins the series 75% of the time, or like you just said then, a team has only won the series 10 out of 40 or 41.
Yep.
That's exactly how it should be. If you think of every game as basically a 50-50, once you're down 1-0, what's the odds of winning the series? Well, you're going to have to win 2 50-50s in a row, which is basically 1 in 4. And 1 in 4 times, it happens. So, someone always wins game one, and it's more than likely they'll win the series just because of the close nature of Origin. But definitely we all accept that the home ground makes this game closer, because I think we all agree New South Wales has picked the better team. You certainly do, Clarky. I would challenge your bet just in the sense of, would you really rather have New South Wales plus 1.5, or would you feel better about going either team 1 to 11? What I gain is an extra 10 points with New South Wales. What you gain is if New South Wales wins by 12 or more. So I guess you got to factor in what's more likely: New South Wales by 12 or more, or Queensland by 1 to 11. If Queensland wins by 1, you'd still win your bet, but Queensland by 2 to 11, let's say. But that's one for other people to ponder too, in terms of whose bet they might like to follow, mine or yours. I had a couple of weaknesses to bring up, and you guys can maybe speculate on these. For Queensland, you got to be a little bit worried about Harry Grant. Hasn't played since game 1, has the sternum concern. For the Hammer, has he got a game in since game 2? He has not either, right? And he's got the shoulder issue. Was Dearden the right choice for this series? Found out a little bit in defense, and I just don't know if he scares the Blues defense enough either. I may have picked someone like Mam, and you wouldn't want to drag Dearden off and wreck his confidence, but I almost feel like if Queensland was down a couple of tries in the second half, would you sub Dearden and play Ponga at 6? And if anything, have Hunt and Ponga and Grant all out there, right, along with DCE. You can't have them all these halves out there, but Ponga is clearly the better attacking threat. And another concern for Queensland, and why you might bet against them, and you alluded to this, Clarky, is there a lack of go forward for the Maroons? Is there a lack of enforcers? Because Flegler is injured, Tino is out for the season, Tom Gilbert was injured pre-season. Do they ultimately miss these guys just a little bit too much? Because they're great players. They would all be there if they were fit. Maybe I get your response there, guys, before I touch on where the Blues may have chinks in the armor.
I'll go to you first, Nakul. What were your thoughts on those takeaways there from Winny?
Yep. I'll go super quick. I think when you look at it band by band and you think about the season, you just can't argue that the Blues are in better form, and to a man probably playing better and got better players. But then I look at it another way, right? So if you just look at middle forwards, you got Cotter, Collins, and Carrigan. We know that Carrigan can play big minutes and also in Origin. But like with Cotter and Collins, let's just say they play like 45 minutes each or whatever. So you got to cover. Let's not get into the numbers. But all I'm trying to say is that between Mo Fotuaika and Felice Kafusi, I think with Fotuaika, you get the numbers. He can play big minutes off the bench if required. With Felice Kafusi, you get impact. You just got to remember the impact he made for the Dolphins early last season, right? And yes, he's a little bit older, a little bit slower. But I think you can look at the Blues bench and just go, wow, yo, Bunnett, oh my God, Leniu. But I think it's like the game's not played up on paper, right? It's Suncorp, it's a decider. And I just think like, are Mo Fotuaika and Felice Kafusi going to let you down? Hell no. I think like, again, it's just going to be so interesting because you cannot get two more contrasting like coaching styles and selection styles than what you see here. In form, young, fresh, ready to go Blues bench. And Mo Fotuaika, Felice Kafusi, and Kurt Capewell for the Maroons. It's just going to be so interesting to see which style and like selection mindset wins out. Because you best believe that the team that like loses, their coach is going to get absolutely smashed. It's going to be super interesting.
It's going to be a tough press conference for whichever coach loses. Winnie, I agree with all of the weaknesses you put forward there, and probably the one thing that I'll float between both of what you've said is, yes, Suncorp's a big challenge, but these players for the Blues are a little bit crazy. Like Barnett and Leniu are a little bit crazy, so it actually could spur them up to a new level, or it could break them. We just don't know yet. And as Ryan's putting out in the comments, he said, Clarky, you could just make up stats, and I'm sure we wouldn't realize. Look, Winnie's called me out on that before in our NRL previews, but I did look at the stats for the series so far. Yeah, Nakul, he goes, so why'd you cut it off out of 7 of the last 12? You know, what happened in the other 3 or whatever to get it to 15? But when you look at the stats from this series, the Blues are leading in every single stat except points scored. Line breaks, the Maroons have 12 there to the Blues 6, so that is impressive. And penalties, the Maroons have given 2 less penalties. Every single other stat that you want to be positive in, the Blues lead them. Possibly one of the most concerning ones as well, though, is 30 offloads to the Blues to only 10 for the Maroons. In tight games, that second phase play can really be the difference, just disrupting that defensive system and lineup just a little bit. So that's definitely one we've got to pay attention to. Winnie, over to you for the Blues weakness in their chinks in their armor, as you call it. How do you see that?
So Bradman Best with the hamstring, he seems to have gotten through it and be training well from all reports, but it's troubled him multiple times. And when you're not carrying an outside back on the bench, it is an extra worry. Should the Blues lose anyone from their back 5, then what do we think? Like, is a Connor Watson going to be playing centre? Is Angus Crichton, Cam Murray? They're all viable, but it suddenly goes from a strength to a little bit of a weakness because none of those guys are, regular, and that's not their perfect position. I wonder if a selection of Robson comes back to hurt you. Anybody could have played 9 for the Blues in game 2 and they would have won, right? And actually, Robson did pretty well in game 1 as well. So I can't fault him, but he's not a superstar. And in these games, it is the superstars at the key positions that win it for you. I'm going to share another really unpopular opinion. If New South Wales lose this series and lose game 3 and it's close, or even if it's not close, I think you do have to question Gerbo being in the team and being captain. Should you really pick someone who is not one of your best 17 players because he's a legend of a bloke? Or should you not just pick the best 17 players and then expect that from those 17 elite players, there's enough leadership and you back yourself as a coach to establish the culture? Do we really need to pick a guy because, he bleeds blue and he's such a champion, like that'll help our culture? Shouldn't the culture be strong enough if you're picking winners? I don't know. Gerbo hasn't played big minutes, so hasn't been that impactful. But I kind of want my starting prop, who is my captain, to be impactful. And I am looking at someone else like Stefano Utuikamanu, who is just bowling people over every single week on a West Tigers team that's usually behind, thinking he would offer more as one example of someone who could be there instead. If it's a fine margin, I hate to say it, but Gerbo's not a match-winning player at this point. Am I being too harsh?
Well, I think you are being fair there. What I can say as well is with the stats breakdown that I've done for both of these Origin lineups with random stats guy. Jake Trbojevic has the 5th worst rating of all players. The only players that have a lower rating this year in his team is Liam Martin and Spencer Lemieux, who's primarily coming off the bench, so less minutes. And for the Maroons, it's Kurt Capel and Felice Kafusi, which we'd kind of expect at the veteran stage of their career. So no, you look at it from the eye test, Winnie, he's not getting that many minutes. And you look at it from the stats perspective, which removes all opinion, and 5th worst player in Origin is what the stats say. What are your thoughts on that one, Nakul?
I think sorry, we're talking about the Blues or the Maroons? Sorry.
Yeah, Jake Trbojevic, the selection there.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Yep. Well, with Turbo, and I've got try scorer picks and try scorer and player of the match picks, by the way. So just let me know when to get through those. But Jobo actually features in one of them. I won't reveal which one just yet. But I think with Jake Trbojevic, it's a really interesting one to talk about. And if they lose, exactly as what he said, it will be something that's talked about, right? I think the interesting thing to note, though, is that they were a man down in game 1, and it made sense, at least to me, why you wouldn't play someone like Jobo just because you need to chase the game, etc. Game 2, there was it 34-0? I remember they scored 34, but 34-0 at halftime, right? Yeah. 34-0 at halftime. You don't really need Jake Trbojevic to be playing when you're 34-0 up. Great opportunity to get your sort of younger, less experienced Origin players on the field. I actually think, and look, most of us think this is going to be a close game. I reckon we'll actually see why why Jake Trbojevic is in the team at all in game 3. So again, might be kind of different to what we just said, but it's going to be really interesting because I actually think as long as it is a close game, we just spoke about Felice Kafusi and Kurt Capel. A lot of people thinking, oh, why are they there instead of David Fifita? Well, the Blues have gone the opposite way, right? With a heap of young, relatively inexperienced Origin players who are in the going towards the peak of their career. Jobo is obviously well past that, but I think he'll show us why he's needed if it is a close game. And I definitely think he'll get more minutes as well. But it could go the other way, right? If it's not a close game or if the Blues do lose, all the talk is going to be why was he captain? Who's going to be captain next year, etc.
That's a fair take as well, mate, because he is so consistent in the middle. And what Jake Trbojevic is going to give you, let's say it's to this level here, he will give you that 9 out of 10 games, whereas someone off the bench like Spencer Lemieux could give you up here, but he's not going to be able to give it to you as consistently as someone like Jake Trbojevic can. You mentioned try scorers. We're just over the 40-minute mark, so I do want to go to that if we can, please. You are the try scorer.
Try scorers, which I'll stay out of. I'll give my final prediction for the game because I only shared the best bet of either team 1 to 11, and I like that. Nakul's made a great case for Queensland and some of those names, just the experience. They've been there before. They're not going to blink. And I do just think it sets up for an absolute nail-biter down to the wire. I think desperation is going to win out over any intimidation for the Blues. You might say, well, what do you mean desperation? It's 1-1, but it is 1-1, but it is also New South Wales staring down the barrel of 3 straight series defeats. So I do think that the Blue, it means so much to them, and they've got the right team to come up to Queensland and win, where in other years that really was formidable, especially during the decade of dominance by Queensland. And then even since the era of Immortals, the legendary era of Queensland, there have been a couple of deciders at Suncorp, and for different reasons. The Blues will definitely rue the fact that they didn't win those games. The Blues were favourites in 2020, the COVID year, and they were in the decider, and they were big favourites before the series. They were like $1.30 before the series, if people recall. That was like the unwinnable that was coached by Bennett. And 2022, the Blues were big favourites in the decider as well. Remember, Munster was ruled out with COVID, and Queensland got them both times. So I feel like there's so much urgency for the Blues to come through and win, and I will give you man of the match. I'll give you man of the match now too, but I'm going to go Blues by 1. I'm going to say that Mitch Moses kicks the winning field goal, wins the Wally Lewis. That cashes my either team 1 to 11. And my man of the match is Cam Murray. Best price, $26 on Top Sport. He is a vital player for New South Wales. Had he been available for game 1, he would be the Blues captain. And I don't even know if Gerbo would be in this team, but Cam Murray would be the captain if Cam Murray wasn't injured before the series. I'm pretty sure of that. And on the note of those past two deciders, Don't forget that Cam Murray hurt his hamstring in the first game of the 2020 series, wasn't there for the decider, and was knocked out a few minutes into the 2022 decider, didn't really get to play a part in New South Wales having a chance to win that. If he gets through this game, he will be one of the best on field. I think 26 is an outstanding price for Cam Murray.
That's a great call. And when you look at his connection with Michael Maguire and the fact I believe it was Maguire who debuted him at Souths, then yeah, certainly. I agree with you. He could have been there and been captain in game one if he was healthy. Alrighty, great calls there. We've wrapped it up from our keys to victory, our breakdown of the game. Let's get into two niche markets now, gents. Let's go try scorers, then into Wally Lewis medal predictions. When we talk try scorers, we have to go to you first, Nakul. I know you've got some good ones for us here, so let it rip, baby. What you got?
Yeah, sweet. I'll do try scorers and player of the match, by the way. I think Winnie might have done Wally Lewis. But anyways, I'll rattle through all mine in one go. Just before I do that, I actually put out a little notification announcement on Discord. This will take like 15 seconds, I promise. But especially for the guys in the wiki community and TryPod, I've been there for many years before 2020 probably. But I just wanted to make a quick announcement that from next year, this will be the last year of Wiki Premium. Nothing's happening to Wiki, our Discord, our community, all our free stuff. That will continue. So I know most of you guys obviously engage on the community and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, long story short, this is my full-time gig. It's a lot of hours. It's a lot of unpaid hours because Wiki is my full-time business. But yeah, we'll still be here. The picks will still be, but I just wanted to make that announcement real quick. Getting into the decider. It's funny when Winnie said the Blues by one, I'm going to go the Maroons by one. I was weighing up whether to go by one, by two, by four or whatever. But the kind of game that I'm thinking, like, even if you get to like the 65th minute of this game, you're almost thinking like there's a potential for a field goal real soon. So now when I started picturing the game, if it goes the way that most of us think and it's tight towards the end of the game, I think both sides are going to start looking for that field goal. So I'm going to go the Maroons by one. I'll get into my try scorer and player of the match picks real quick. Try scorer picks, and I'll publish the article straight after this podcast, by the way. I wanted to go live with the picks on the podcast. Payne Haas, first and last try, $67 odds. First is 67s on BetRight, 365 and Neds. Last is 71s on BetRight. The reason why I like him real quick, he scored 2 tries since he returned from injury just before Origin this year. He's looked really, really good. And I tipped him at 51s, if you remember, just a few weeks ago where he scored, I think it was first against the Titans, it might have been. Love Payne Haas this game at that price. The other one, Winnie just mentioned him, Cam Murray. So he scored the first try and the last try, both roughly 1 in every 25 games that he's played in the NRL. And we're getting $51 on Bet365 for him to score the last try. But also on Neds or Ladbrokes, his first, second, or third try is $19 odds. So 19 times 357. You hope he's on for the third. Amazing price for Cam Murray. Tom Dearden, if you're a Maroons fan, you'll definitely want to hear at least one Maroons pick. He scored the first try, 1 in like 11 or some ridiculous strike rate, 1 in 11 or 14 games or something like that. And you're getting 34s on Bet365 for him, first or last try, separate plays. And the last one, and we've talked about him a couple of times, Spencer Leniu. Last Magic round for the guys on TryPod and Wiki. I'm sure you guys remember we tipped him at $101 odds to score the first try in the second half last year Magic round, which is an amazing feeling. Obviously, the prices aren't as good anymore, but he's $46 on Sportsbet. The way he's looked, he almost scored, if you guys remember, in game one. Looked really, really good. So those are my 4 picks. In the article, I have written a little bit more and got it into the stats. I won't do all of that now. But yeah, hopefully we can sign off in a high and get a big odds first try score pick crash over for this game. Player of the match, I won't talk through the reasoning in detail. I'll quickly go through the picks, but Brian To'o, 67s on BetRight, 365 and TAB. Jake Trbojevic, and I will very quickly explain why I'm saying this, 67s on BetRight. Dane Gagai, 61s on Sportsbet. And Jeremiah Nanai, 36s on Sportsbet. So To'o, I won't say the reason again. I think I've tipped him at almost every single game I've done, like tips for Origin. He gets the run meters every time. He needs to just score 1 or 2 tries in a tight game. And like he's just someone that you remember. I think that's a great price for To'o. Trbojevic, I will explain real quick. My theory is if he gets that sort of 40 to 50 minute sort of normal prop slot, and the Blues do win in a tight one, as much as I fully understand that he's clearly not in the prime of his career, I think as the captain in a close game, if we win or if the Blues win this game, I think 67s is just ridiculous for someone who's the captain. That's all. Fun little play. Gagai, I Googled this to double check the stats, and Clarky, you may need to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I did double check again. You might want to triple check. He's won a Wally Lewis medal, and he's won on a separate occasion in 2019, he's won a player of the match medal. So yes, those games I think were both on the wing, and he's in the centers now. But man, that storyline, everyone talks about Origin Gagai. Like, I will be getting on this quite a bit at 60 odds on Sportsbet. And the last one, Nanai, same thing as last game. I think he's one where he's most likely going to play 80 minutes because Capewell is the other second rower. So if one of them is going to go off, it's definitely going to be Capewell. Scored a try in game 2, scored a try last series in 2023 as well. And he's on that DCE side. So I think like whatever Queensland does in attack, Nanai is not going to be too far away. He's going to play his 80 minutes. He just needs that one sort of spectacular try, and he'll be in the back of the selector spine. So obviously I haven't got any short price picks, but if you think Reece Walsh is going to score a try or he's going to win the medal, you don't need me to convince you. But yeah, those are my picks. Google Wiki Linktree, guys. We're just about to crack 5,000 on Discord, and I will be pressing publish on this article as soon as we finish this potty.
Well said. And if you hear from my Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, that link will go up on my Instagram and Facebook story, so you can tap on and go straight to that punters preview article, like you can every round for the NRL as well. There from Wiki. We have a question on YouTube from Ryan Winny. He is asking thoughts on a play to kick a 40-20, paying $4.25. Does that price seem okay? I have done some chat GPTing, and it tells me from 2020 there's been 3 successful 40-20s. So that's 3 from 14, probably on par with the $4.25 there. I wouldn't say that's value. That seems to just be level on the stats. Now to my try scorers. Now I've gone a little bit different to game 2 where we did cash. I went mainly explosive outside backs in game 2. I thought that would have been the difference between the two sides. This time, as I broke it down in the game preview, I think it'll be a tighter contest where tries will be a little bit harder to come by because both teams have adjusted so well defensively and really studied the film. To that end, I've gone with another Clarky same game multi. Thank you very much, Winnie. What we're looking for here is any 2 back rowers from all 4 playing from both states to score. So you can back this if you're a Maroon or if you're a Blue. Starters, exactly right. All 4 starting back rowers. Why I like this one, I go to the Blues. There's no back rower specialist on their bench, so I do expect Liam Martin and Angus Crichton to play the full 80. Liam Martin, he's averaging 72 minutes this series. He was the one coming off for Olakau'atu, who's now gone, and he does have a try in this series. Angus Crichton's played 80 minutes in both of his games. No try, but his form has been as good as possible in Origin and the NRL, particularly in game 2 there. For Jeremiah Nanai, he has played 80 minutes in both of them, and he also almost scored a try in game 1. It was disallowed, and then he did score in game 2. That was also one of Nakul's picks there. And for Capewell, now he only played 37 minutes in game 2. I expect he'll play the full 80 or close to it here. I think they'll prefer to put Kaufusi in a middle role instead of an edge role. And there has been plenty made of Capewell's inclusion, so I wouldn't be shocked if he was motivated and up for a try. Now that pays $5. We need any 2 of the starting 4 back rowers in State of Origin game 3 to score. You can find this market on Top Sport under Sport, Rugby League, Clarky's Collect SGM. That's where you'll find this market on Toppy. Maximum total stake on this event is $50. That's what I'm going there. Winnie, do you want to have any words on anything try score related, or do you want me to move straight into the Wally Lewis predictions?
Wally Lewis sounds good to me, mate.
Alrighty, gents. I'll tell you where I've...
Your market. As always, I do endorse the price. I've crunched the numbers because, again, 2 out of 4, how do you figure out what odds it should be? Trust me, that's a nice price, just like Clarky's $10 was in game 2, which also cashed. And Clarky picked 3 out of 4 last game. He only needs 2 out of 4 in this one.
Yeah, mate, and I think it'll be a tighter contest. You know, maybe that little grubber through the line, maybe a rebound off a player. I don't know. I just feel a few funny tries coming in this game, and I think that the back rowers will be the ones that cash in this time. Alrighty, gents, final little bit of market to get through here. Let's jump into the Wally Lewis medal predictions. I'll tell you how I have it so far, and then I'll pass to you, gents, for your pick. Game 1, 3 points, Daly Cherry Evans. 2 points, The Hammer. 1 point, Cobbo. Game 2, 3 points, Mitchell Moses. 2 points, Dylan Edwards. 1 point, Angus Crichton. So from where I'm sitting here, realistically, I have to pick Daly Cherry Evans or Mitchell Moses. My pick pre-series was Patrick Carrigan. I'm happy to say I've got that wrong. I don't think that'll get over the line there. What I would need for either of those halfbacks to lose is for them to not receive a single point in their side winning and someone else to get a 3-point game, which then overtakes theirs when they have their final say. So I've got to play it really safe, gents. My tip is either DCE or Mitchell Moses. Winnie, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on that and this Wally Lewis market?
So just to clarify, it's fine that you've gone the 3-2-1, and I don't disagree, but there are 3 voters, which means there's actually, someone could get 9 votes, right? And then their 2s and their 1s could differ. So it isn't as cut and dry. But what I definitely agree with is we had resounding victories to each states in their respective games. And I'm certain that nobody polled a vote on a losing team, which means all you got to do is if you think Queensland's going to win, you got to look at who polled for Queensland in game 1. If you think you want to pick a Blues player for the Wally, who is already sitting on votes, right? And it's very clear. I think DCE would have been a unanimous, if not near unanimous, man of the match in game 1. But Hammer had a great game too, and a couple others. I thought Carrigan still wasn't too far away. Hunt had a great game, even Selwyn Cobbo, right? But if DCE gets any votes at all, he probably wins. What I can't quite understand is why DCE is $3 for this award and Moses is $5, because Moses was definitely a unanimous man of the match in game 2. So the game is a 50-50. We're talking $1.87 plays $1.95. They're both sitting on basically the max number of points. Let's say out of a possible 9. They've both got either 9 or 8 points realistically. So why is Moses $5.20 but DC is $3? Other than legacy, like if Queensland wins, is there more of a push to, it's close, let's give a vote to DCE here because he's had a long rep career. He's been there for a while. He's captained this state through several series wins, as opposed to Moses. He's younger in his career. Like maybe he has to be more evidently above the others to get votes. I'm not sure. I look at Moses paying $5.20 and actually still think that's value. And this is a guy I backed at 200-1 before game 1. But I still reckon if you like the Blues, Moses at $5.20 is likely to poll in a win, and any type of polling probably gets in the win. DC at $3, I don't disagree with it, but it just feels like they're not doing you any favors with that price. I am looking at the Hammer at 13s on 365 if you want a longer shot on Queensland, because I think the Hammer definitely got a few votes. So then if he was to, I disagree with what you said, Clarky, that the only way someone other than DCE wins is man of the match. If Hammer was, say, second best on ground in this one and DCE had a quieter game, the Hammer actually could be second best for Queensland in 2 wins, which could actually end up with more votes than someone who was man of the match and then didn't poll. Even Carrigan, if Carrigan was man of the match, and I think Carrigan will have to be tremendous because of the New South Wales pack and what their strength is. If you're telling me that the Blues pack does not run over Queensland, Carrigan had a whale of a game, and Carrigan may have polled in game 1 as well. There is a little bit of a storyline behind Ben Hunt. We know Grant has this bit of his injury cloud. Hunt had a really great game 1. So if Hunt was man of the match in game 3, could he be the Wally Lewis medalist? I think it's possible. He was very close in 2022. And then the guy who's not even listed on most bookies, and I see bookies with guys at 300-1. Selwyn Cobbo's not even listed. Now, it's unlikely because I don't think a winger can get man of the match, even though Gagai may have in the past. But, if someone was giving you 300-1 on Cobbo, he actually came off the bench for when Walsh went out and may have got a vote or 2. So then you're kind of thinking, if he's got a vote or 2 and he ends up man of the match in this one, 300-1's crazy. As for New South Wales, I would back Moses at $5.20, as I said. I wouldn't back Angus Crichton, who's quite short in the market, but I just don't think second row is the best position to poll bulk votes. Haas looked like he was limping a little bit against Penrith, but he's due to dominate. Definitely has a chance. You can't completely write off Zach Lomax. How many points did he have in the first half alone? It was 18-0 Lomax versus Queensland, right, in Melbourne. If he was man of the match here, go close. And I will give you another long shot, because as someone who's sitting with Moses at 200-1, I have got my eye on Edwards. Was pretty good in game 2 and is still paying $67. I can't quite figure out why Edwards is $67 for the Wally. If he was man of the match in game 3 and Moses was kept quiet, Edwards could actually get ahead of Moses. So I would be having a little saver on that. And even if you don't have the Moses at long odds in your pocket, that on its own may be worth a cheeky little flyer bet too.
Mate, absolutely love it. Nakul, have you got a pick for the Wally Lewis medal?
I don't, mate, but I'll just add one note, just to add something to the conversation very quickly. I do think a smart play is to not bet on Mitch Moses player of the match. Again, I haven't done the research on this, but I don't think there's ever any incidences where we've had a player win 2 player of the match awards in the same series. Do you guys remember by any chance? At least in the last 15 years, it doesn't ring a bell. But anyways, like someone else can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm just going to say it confidently. I don't think a player has won 2 player of the match awards in the same series. So if you do like New South Wales and you do like Moses, honestly, like putting everything aside, I'm cheering on Winnie's 201 tip because that would just be insane. So yeah, I reckon if you're going to get on Moses, get on him for Wally Lewis. I don't think it's smart to bet on him for player of the match. That's all I'll add.
Yeah, no, that's more than fair. And as Winnie pointed out, because he was a clear MVP in game 2, he wouldn't have to be the MVP. So that goes in line with what you're saying as well. Alrighty, guys, we've said a lot on this. We've broken it all down. Let's do one final recap of all of our tips, predictions, best bets. For me, guys, mine is the New South Wales Blues plus 1.5 at $1.85 on TopSport, and any 2 of the starting 4 back rowers to score on TopSport at $5 odds. Winnie, what are your best bets and plays for this game?
Either team 1 to 11, which you play as the same game. It's $1.85 on Toppy. Man of the match, my favorite would be Cam Murray at 26, also on Toppy. Man of the series, if you haven't already got Moses, still don't mind him at 5.20. To your point, Nakul, why would you back Moses at $10 for man of the match again when he could really be a top 3? In a horse race, you wouldn't back a horse to win at 10s if you get it to place at 5s. And I think if Moses is on the podium, he is the man of the series. So 5.20, longer shot, Hammer $13 for Queensland or Edwards 67, Wally Lewis market for New South Wales.
Perfect. And finally, Nakul, your best bets and tips, please.
Yep, I'll be super quick. Payne Haas, first and last try, pretty much both 67 separate plays. Cam Murray, 51s, first and last separate plays on 365. Dearden, 34s, first and last separate on 365. Lenny Yu, first try, second half, 46s on Sportsbet. Player of the match, To'o, 67s on BetRife, 365 and TAB. Jake Trebojevic, 67s on BetRight. Dan Gagai, 61s on Sportsbet. That's Origin Gagai. And Nanai at 36s on Sportsbet.
Perfect. Well, there we go. That is our Game 3 State of Origin Decider preview show. Thank you very much to everyone who's been here live with us all over social media and to those listening later as a podcast. We absolutely appreciate you spending your time with us here on the TryPod, and we will see you on Thursday night at 5:30 p.m. to recap the Decider and preview NRL Round 20. With that said, Winnie, it's over to you to farewell the show.
Thanks for steering the ship as always, Clarky. We've gone through 2/3 of the season and 3 Origin previews, and we will give a little recap on Thursday as well. And thank you for all your contribution this year, Nakul, and for joining us for another hour. And to everyone who tuned in, thank you as always. Enjoy your week and enjoy the game. Let's hope that we get what we deserve, which is one that is in the balance for 80 minutes. I'm biased saying that because I want the best bet to win. But after 2 blowouts, the pinnacle is when any moment can swing it, and when we get these players pushed to the absolute limit. And I've got a feeling that's what we're in store for, and I can't wait. And whichever side of the ledger you're on, enjoy. Let us know in the comments, as always, what you think about plays or if there's any others standing out to you. And we'll see you back here on Thursday to recap it and look ahead to round 20. Lego.